Today we geek out about Set a Watch. Hey guys, what's going on? It's Lee with Geek City USA here, and today we're going to talk about a game called Set a Watch. Set a Watch is by Rock Manor Games, and it's a dice placement action selection game where you are a band of heroes that are protecting your camp against the oncoming horde of bad guys. Now I'm going to take you over here, I'll give you a brief overview on how the game is played, and we'll come back and I'll share with you our thoughts on the game. Alright guys, this is Set a Watch. Now I've currently set it up for a normal difficulty game, and what that means is I have 2 summon cards in the deck, and I've selected these 4 heroes here, the Cleric, the Wizard, the Knight, and the Dwarf. Now you notice each hero is going to have 3 different ability cards on their player sheet, but they will also have 2 other ones that are not used. Now these are left set aside next to the player cards because these may come into play later on in the game. You may be able to swap them out for ones that you already have in play. I'll show you on these cards here too. These are some of the other heroes that you can be, but you'll see that there's a power listed on the bottom. For whichever hero is sent to camp each turn, they can do this power 1 time. And you'll also notice that there's this icon here. This indicates they are able to do melee combat, so they can only attack a bad guy that is 1 space away from the camp, which is essentially they would be right next to the camp. And then there's also this here, and they have a range of 2, so they can get up to 2 cards away. And you'll see that more when I finish the setup for the rest of the game here. Now you're going to set up a location deck with 9 cards in it, and 8 of them will be random, and the 9th one is going to be this Forbidden Tower. Now the Forbidden Tower is the last location that you have to make it through. If you can make it through the 9 creatures that are going to come through, then you will win the game. So we're going to go ahead and set this right back in place there. We also have our Unhallowed. You're going to put 1 into the Horde deck, the Horde you're going to face on your last turn, as well as you're going to put 8 other ones randomly selected. There's a batch of them, and you're going to pick 8 of them here, and you're going to leave them face up, and they will sit right there. And as you draw summon cards from the deck, much like an Epidemic, if you've ever played Pandemic, you will replace that with one of these Unhallowed cards. Now the Unhallowed are more difficult than a standard creature. So I'm not going to be able to cover 100% of the rules. I'm going to kind of fly through this a little bit. There's a lot of depth to it because you see like each character has a different set of abilities that you have to consider, and I don't want to go through and explain all of them. It'll take quite a while. I'm just going to do like a brief run through of a turn or 2, and I think that would help give you an understanding of how the game flows. Now I'll also say for our camp we have set up with 8 firewood. Now you can roll a d8 and pick anywhere in between, but a standard setup is 8, and it's easier to start off with 8 obviously than if you have fewer. Now what this means, if you see here, there's a number 1, a number 2, and a number 3, and there's going to be 3 laser etched wooden flames here. And they have, this one has a 2, this one has a 3, and this one has nothing. And that's to help indicate the strength of your fire for how many bad guys you can see away from the camp. So we're going to start out with this one here again, which just has a 2. And we're going to put the 2 at the 8, and that's going to tell us we can see 2 bad guys away. Now when we start off, we're all going to roll our dice, and I'm just going to roll and kind of place them next to the player cards. That was a lousy roll. That's the story of my life. 3, 5, 1. Usually I would, make a better effort at rolling, but considering that I want these dice flying all over the table, that's just the best we could do right now. You can also here, let's reveal the first location we're going to go to. And the first location is the Frost Caverns. Now, right here, -2. We don't do this the first turn, but you will every future turn. That's how much camp firewood is going to drop. So in this case, if it was -2, you'd go down to 2, or you'd go down 2 to the number 6, which means you can no longer see 2 bad guys away. You can only see 1. You'll also see here that it says reduce the health of all dragons by 2. That's good for you as a hero. You also see this number 7 here with the skull. That's how many creatures you must face to beat this location. So we're going to place this right here. Now between our dice rolls and the location we're going to face, we have to decide who we're going to send to camp. Everybody has to rest at camp twice. You get these nice little wooden tokens here that indicate ×1 or ×2 with the camp location with the little tent. Everybody has to spend at least 2 turns here. So what you're going to do is you would typically look based on maybe what their tent power, or what their camp powers are. Like in this case, heal, refresh one exhausted adventurer card with any die that is 4 or better. So he could use his 2 and use that power and refresh a card from a hero that might be exhausted. Usually a lot of times you might pick somebody with the lowest score because they might be more effective in camp just gathering firewood. Sometimes you might want somebody who rolls doubles. Why do you want somebody that rolls doubles? I'm glad you asked that. While you're in camp, you have a certain selection of actions that you can do, including the one that's on your player board. Now, first things first, there's going to be these 3 runes on the location card. Let me bring that up there to show to you, if you can see that okay. There's one that says Seal, one that says Vanquish, and one that says Bolster. Now you need doubles to activate one of those. And what those do is if you choose the Seal option, let's say this was a guy sent to camp, we use 2 of our dice to activate the Seal action. That lets you remove an Unhallowed from the graveyard and place it at the bottom of the Unhallowed deck. So in other words, as you go through these creatures, they're going to get exhausted, they're going to a graveyard, you're going to shuffle that deck back up. But if you do the Seal action, you can remove any of the Unhalloweds that might be in that deck and put them out of play for the time being, which helps to weaken the creature deck a little bit. You can also use the Vanquish action, and that lets you take the top creature of the horde out of the game. Now this is the horde here, and these are the ones, anybody who you can't defeat is going to go through and end up in the horde, and you're going to face them at the end of the game, in addition to the creatures at the last location. So that would let you clear something out of the horde, so that way the horde is easier for you at the end of the game. And finally, there's the Bolster action, and what that lets you do is that lets every adventurer who is on watch, and the people that are on watch are the ones that are not at camp, but it lets them re-roll their lowest die. So which would be perfect if you had, like in this case, if the wizard had gone to camp, then you can have the cleric reroll as 2, the dwarf reroll as 2, and the knight reroll as 1. Now in addition to those actions, there's also a chop firewood action, and what this does is you can place up to 3 dice there. In this case, let's say again we sent the wizard, you could just set a die there, and then every time you assign a die to the chop firewood, you raise this by 2. Now again, as you go from location to location, you're going to lose firewood at these locations or at your camp, so you're going to need to replenish that. There's also the Scout Ahead action. Now what happens there is you would place a die there, and you can look at the top 2 cards on the creature deck. And if you do that, you can look at them, you can put them back in any order that you would like, and you can put them back on the top or the bottom of the deck. So let's say you're going to face something that's pretty strong, like in this case, this guy here, the Wyvern, in first position, he would cost us 3 firewood as soon as he appears in the first position. So you probably don't want him to start out in the first position. Or you might want to put him on the bottom of the deck altogether. So there is that. Now there's 3 spaces here you see. This lets you do that action more than once, but each time you do it, you see these little arrows here. The next die that you place has to be higher in value than the first one, or than the one before. So in this case, you could place the 3 and do that action again, but I couldn't do this a 3rd time because this is another 3 and it's not higher than this one here. For the check map action, you would draw the top card from the location deck as well as the top card from the unused location deck. You would then look at those, decide which one you want to keep and put back on top of the original map deck, and then you would take the one that you don't use and put it to the bottom of the unused location deck. The equip action here, what this lets you do is swap out one of your unused ability cards with one of the ones that are on your player board. Now, if these are ever exhausted, in which case you wouldn't be able to use that ability, you would have to bring in an ability exhausted if you wanted to swap those 2 out. But that is how you would change the powers that you have. Finally, there's the heal action here. This requires a 6 roll. And you are able to heal a hero, in which case, again, if this is exhausted and you put a 6 there, you could flip that back over and that would be considered healed. Now also, whenever you send an adventurer to camp and they're watching over the camp here, they also get to heal 1 for free. So now we'll say we are going to send the wizard to camp. So we'll give him this number 1 camp tile just to let us know that he went to camp 1 time, because everybody has to go twice. And then we'll go ahead and set up the location. We need 7 creature cards. So let's set them here. We have 1, 2, let's bring those up a little bit, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we'll just put the 7th one right here. I'll set that deck sideways at the top. Now because we are at, look here, the 2, that means we are able to see what these 2 creatures are. So we're going to start by revealing the first creature, and it says goblins. Now they will do 1 damage to us if we are not able to defeat them, which in turn this card would go into the horde, and one of these cards would get flipped over, one of the ability cards. They have a health of 6, and it says reveal, move goblins to first position. So in this case, if we revealed the goblins here, we would move them over to the first position. Now the second card we can look at, because it says we could see 2 ahead, we'll flip, and it's a wyvern, and it says first position, -3 firewood. Now, it's a good thing that's in the second position, because we don't want to lose firewood if we can help it. It would do 2 damage to us if we didn't defeat it, and it takes 6 power to defeat it. And we will set that there. Now actually, before I've done all this, I should have done the camp locations. I explained them, I didn't do them. So for a sample turn, let's just say that, I don't know, we'll put 2 here, and we'll use the Vanquish, and we'll get rid of the top creature on the horde deck. We'll just discard that. And then with this other one, we're going to chop some firewood and move that up too. So now we can continue with our turn. So now you'll see here we have 2 characters to beat. We have a goblin and a wyvern. Now, out of suggestion, we're going to want to get this wyvern first, because again, its first position is -3 firewood. So we want to take care of this guy first. So he has a 6th health. So what we could do, if we look, the cleric has a bow and arrow, the cleric has a die that's a 6, we could exhaust this die and kill that wyvern, which is what I think we will do. So we've killed that, he'll go to the graveyard, and then we'll scooch all of these other ones down, and now we can still see this next one that's up. Now the next one we flip is a zombie horde, ongoing. Zombie horde's health is always combined with the creature card on top of the graveyard. So he is an 8, and the wyvern we killed is a 6, so this zombie horde currently is a 14. Now that really sucks. Now we can look here, we see this is an undead card, so it says the card type at the bottom. This is undead. If we look at the cleric has an action here that says all revealed undead creatures go to the graveyard. You can decide the order they are defeated. So we could do 2 things. We can use a die to activate this card and do the action, or we can exhaust the card, which is the same as taking some health damage, and do the action without using a die. Or if we wanted to, we could use a die on it and then later exhaust it and get an extra action out of the deal that way. What I think we'll do is we're just going to use this 2. We're going to use that to kill the zombie horde, because it says all revealed undead creatures go into the graveyard. So we will do that. We'll slide all these down and we'll see what's in position 2. In this case, we have a Fae. When it's in first position, we're going to lose a firewood. So again, we're going to want to keep knocking out these second position characters. So now in this case, I can use this 2. And if you look at this card here, a throw axe, deal 8 damage to a revealed creature in the second position. So I could put this on here just to say I'm going to use that, and we could do 8 damage to this guy. So this guy is now dead. So you can kind of see how it could start to get stressful. We're in a good position in the beginning because we have all these cards that we can exhaust, which lets us do additional things. You take a little more actions, squeeze a little bit out of the deal, or out of the, a little extra juice out of the lemon, if you will. But as the game goes on, it's going to get a lot more difficult, and you're going to have to manage that more. And you're also not going to be able to see as far ahead, because as you see, like the next location, well, we're going to lose 1 firewood, but it's going to get increasingly difficult. But I just want to give you a high-level overview of the game. Obviously, that's not an optimum way to play, just to explain some of the mechanics to you. But I'm going to take you back up top, and I will give you our thoughts on this game. All right, guys, that was Set a Watch. So let me start by saying that was an incredible prototype. The component quality on that prototype was absolutely retail in its release. If that was what I bought in a store, I would be totally happy. I love the quality of the cards was great. I love the magnetic box and the way that opened up to be the game board. I thought that was an excellent touch, and I was really, really surprised when the reviewer copy came and it was that high quality. The gameplay of this game is quite simple. You're going to roll your dice of all the heroes if you're playing solo, or if you're playing with a whole bunch of people, everybody's going to roll their dice. And then you will figure out which one of you is going to go to the camp. That person will go ahead and take care of the fire or do some healing and so on. And then everybody else will be forced to face the bad guys at the location. And the goal is to clear the line. And it's quite stressful to try to do so because you're balancing what dice you have and those values versus the health on the monsters, as well as you also have your special powers, so maybe you activate those with some lower number dice. But the mechanics are really, really easy to pick up, but there's so much thought that can go into a game. If you are analysis paralysis, this game might stress you out a little bit because sometimes you have to sit and really look and weigh your options and say, do I kill this guy with that 4 dice? You know, do I use the 4 pips and the 5 pips to kill that one guy, or do I try to activate a power that I have? So there is so much room for strategy in this game, and again, it's really easy to pick up. Now, the replayability on this game is huge because you have a number of different characters that you can pick from, hero-wise, and then you're always going to build up your creature deck separately, and your Unhallowed deck is going to be built separately as well. So you don't know what big baddies you're going to face. You also don't know what locations you're going to go to. And then obviously the dice rolling adds a random element to it. Now, some people are put off by dice rolling in games. I always question when people are uncomfortable with too much luck in a game, but the dice rolling in this game is really mitigated by the individual player powers, because if you roll poorly, you can still use those to activate those powers that you have in front of you. So, you know, your 6s can be used to do big damage, and those 1s can knock down, you know, potentially kill multiple creatures at a time. So I thought that was a really nice touch in order to mitigate any kind of poor rolling you might do. But as far as replayability goes, like I said, it's definitely huge with this game. So many different experiences when you play this game. Now, this game has a wide audience that will be attracted to it, I think, because it's an easy game to pick up, it's an easy game to teach, and the player interaction works quite well because you all work together. So there's a good sense of camaraderie or cooperation to the game, and I think that's definitely a nice touch. Also, the game is mobile and you can take it with you, so that opens up to who you introduce the game to, as well as there's enough thought to this game and enough stress in the game while you're trying to plan out your decisions to appeal to a person who's maybe looking for a little more strategy in this game. So based on that, I think this game is really open to a wide audience of people. Now, all in all, we really like this game. The presentation was fantastic. Just the way it displays on the table, the art and the visual appeal of the game is really well done. And I really like the way that the box folds up, the magnetic clasps, and everything can be stored in that box, and that box is used as a game board for the deluxe version. It's excellent to carry with you wherever you go. It's a quick game to pick up and set up and to teach, and I just feel like it's a game that will see a lot of replayability in our collection. Based on that, if you are a fan of dice rolling games or action assignment, as well as any kind of cooperative games or even fantasy games as a whole, I would definitely recommend you check out this Kickstarter. I think there's a lot of game to appeal to a lot of different people here. All right, guys, that's it. Thanks for hanging out with us. Once again, my name is Lee. I'm with Geek City USA. Comment down below. Let us know your thoughts on the game, as well as check us out on social media. We're on Facebook. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We love to interact with you guys and get to know you. Once again, thanks for hanging out. My name is Lee. I'm a geek, and we will see you next time.